In this video, we're going to review for the Unit 1 test. So your test will be over these lessons: multi-step equations, variables on both sides of the equation, literal equations, and solving inequalities. So to study for your test, it's a really good idea to look over old homework assignments. Try to rework any problems that you might have missed. Also do the practice problems in the Unit 1 test review. Attend any one-to-one sessions and office hours if you have questions. Remember, you can always email me if you have any questions. So let's work through some solutions to the review. So remember, when we're solving equations, we're going to start off by using the distributive property. Then we're going to work on combining like terms. We're going to move all the variables to one side of the equation. And then we're going to add and subtract to isolate the variable, and then multiply and divide. So in this problem, when we're going to solve for x, we're going to start off by combining these like terms. Notice that I have a negative 2x and a 6x that are like terms. So I'm going to rewrite this equation so the like terms are written together. So negative 2x plus 6x plus 4 equals 20. Now I'm going to combine these two terms. And when I combine them, remember that I combine the coefficients. So negative 2 plus 6 will give me 4x. And then I have plus 4 equals 20. Now I need to work on isolating the variable. So I have plus 4. To move that 4 away, I'm going to do the opposite and subtract 4 from both sides. So when I do that, on the left side, I have 4x, plus 4 and minus 4 cancel, and that equals 20 minus 4, which is 16. So now I have 4 times x equals 16, so I'm going to do the opposite, and I'm going to divide both sides by 4. So when I divide both sides by 4, on the left I have x, and that equals 16 divided by 4, which is 4. So x equals 4 is my answer. So now if we're trying to solve negative 2 times x plus 5 equals negative 22, we're going to start off by using the distributive property, because we have a factor that's in front of a parentheses. So I'm going to distribute the negative 2, which gives me negative 2 times x plus negative 2 times 5. That equals negative 22. Negative 2 times x will be negative 2x. Then we have plus negative 2 times 5 is negative 10. That equals negative 22. So now I have this double sign in my problem. I have plus negative. So I'm going to combine those into a subtraction sign. So I have negative 2x minus 10 equals negative 22. Now I'm going to try to isolate x. So I'm going to start off with adding 10 to both sides. So on the left side, that leaves me with negative 2x. Negative minus 10 and plus 10 will cancel. So that I have negative 22 plus 10, which is negative 12. Now I need to divide both sides by negative 2. And on the left side, negative 2 and negative 2 will cancel, leaving me with x equals negative 12 divided by negative 2, which is 6. So my answer is x equals 6. So now in this problem, let's try solving for x. We have 3x plus 7 equals negative 5. So to start off this problem, I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides. And that's going to give me negative 3x. And 7 and minus 7 will cancel, equals negative 5 minus 7, which is negative 12. So now I have negative 3x equals negative 12. So now to get x by itself, I'm going to have to divide both sides by negative 3. So when I do that, on the left, negative 3 and negative 3 will cancel, and then I'm left with x equals negative 12 divided by negative 3, which is 4. So x equals 4 is the answer. Now let's try solving this problem for x. We have 4 minus 6 minus x equals 20. So in this problem, I have one of those situations where I'm distributing after a subtraction sign. So when I'm distributing after a subtraction sign, I'm going to rewrite that subtraction as adding the opposite. So instead of this, I'm going to write 4 plus negative 6 minus x equals 20. So now there's this negative floating around in front of this parentheses. Remember then when we have a coefficient of 1, we usually don't write it in an algebra problem. So this negative floating around here is actually a negative 1. So that means that I'm going to be distributing this -1 to every term that's within the parentheses. So I have 4 plus -1 times 6 minus -1 times x. That equals 20. Now let's multiply everything out. So we have 4 plus -1 times 6, which is -6, minus -1 times x, which is -x, which equals 20. Now let's take care of some of these double signs. So I have plus negative, which I'm going to turn into a subtraction sign. We have minus a negative, which is going to become a plus. So we have plus x equals 20. Now let's combine the like terms that we have. We have 4 minus 6, so that's going to be -2 plus x equals 20. Now I'm going to move the -2 away by adding 2 to both sides. And that will leave me with just x, because -2 and +2 will cancel, and 20 plus 2, which is 22. So x equals 22. So let's try solving this problem for x. We have 5x plus 4 equals -7x minus 20. So in this problem, I have a variable on both sides. So I'm going to move all my variables to one side. So here I have -7x, so the opposite of that will be to add 7x to both sides. So when I do that, on the left side, I have 5x plus 7x, which is 12x. Bring down the plus 4, and that equals -7x and plus 7x will cancel, and I'm left with -20. Now I'm going to move away this plus 4 by subtracting 4 from both sides. So when I do that, on the left, I'm left with 12x, plus 4 and minus 4 will cancel, and that equals -20 minus 4, which is -24. Now I need to isolate x, so I'm going to do the opposite of multiplying by 12 and divide both sides by 12. On the left, 12 and 12 will cancel, so I have x equals -24 divided by 12, which is -2. So x equals -2 is the answer to this equation. So now let's try this problem. We have 4 times x plus 1 equals 3 times 2x plus 4. So in this problem, we're going to have to distribute every time we see a factor in front of parentheses. So on the left side, I'm going to distribute this 4. The right side, I'm going to distribute this 3. So on the left, I have 4 times x plus 4 times 1. So I'm going to work on simplifying the left side, and then I'll come back to the right. So 4 times x will give me 4x plus 4 times 1, which is 4. Now let's look at the right side. We have 3 times 2x, so that's 3 times 2x plus 3 times 4. So when we multiply those terms out, we get 6x plus 3 times 4, which is 12. So now let's look at this equation. This is one of those equations where I have a variable on both sides of my problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move all of the variables to one side. So what I'm going to do is this 6x is positive. So instead of plus 6x, I'm going to subtract 6x from both sides. So on the left side, 4x minus 6x gives me -2x. And then I have plus 4 equals 6x and minus 6x will cancel. And then I have 12. Now to get the variable by itself, I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides, which gives me -2x. Plus 4 and minus 4 will cancel. And then I have 12 minus 4, which is 8. Now to get the variable by itself, I need to divide both sides by -2. So when I do that, on my left side, -2 and -2 will cancel, leaving me with just x equals 8 divided by -2, which is -4. So my answer is -4. So now let's try this problem. 11w minus 2 minus 4w equals 13 plus 2w minus 1. So in this problem, we're going to have to distribute. I'm going to work with one side at a time just to make it a little bit easier to see what I'm doing. So here I'm subtracting after a distribution. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this problem as adding the opposite. So this is 11w plus -2 minus 4w. So remember, when we have that negative right there, that's a -1. So I'm going to distribute that -1 to everything within the parentheses. So I have 11w plus negative 1 times 2 minus negative 1 times 4w. So now let's simplify this. I have 11w plus negative 1 times 2, which is negative 2, minus negative 1 times 4w, which is negative 4w. So now I have a bunch of double signs, so I'm going to simplify those. So my plus negative is going to become a subtraction, so I have 11w minus 2, minus a negative will become plus, so I have plus 4w. So now on the left side, notice that I have like terms. I have a 4w and I have 11w. So I'm going to combine those two like terms, and 11w plus 4w will give me 15w. So I have 15w minus 2, and now my left side is fully simplified. Now let's work on simplifying the right. So on the right side, I have this 2 that I'm going to need to distribute to everything within the parentheses. So I have 13 plus 2 times w minus 2 times 1. When I multiply this out, I get 13 plus 2w minus 2. So now I have some like terms that I need to combine in this equation. 13 and minus 2 are like terms, so I'm going to write them together. So I have 13 minus 2 plus 2w. Now I'm going to combine this 13 minus 2, which is 11, and then I have plus 2w. So 11 plus 2w is the simplified form of the right side of the equation. So I'm going to write this on the next slide because I'm out of room. I have 15w minus 2 equals 11 plus 2w. So now I have variables on both sides of my equation. I'm going to need to move these over so I have all my variables on one side. So plus 2w, the opposite is minus 2w. So on the left side, I'm going to have 15w minus 2w, which is 13w, minus 2 equals 11, plus 2w and minus 2w will cancel. So now to get w by itself, I'm going to start off by adding 2 to both sides. So on the left side, that leaves me with 13w, minus 2 and plus 2 will cancel, and that equals 11 plus 2, which is 13. So now to get w by itself, I have to divide both sides by 13. So 13 over 13 cancels, leaving me with w equals 13 divided by 13, which is 1. So w equals 1 is the answer to this equation. So now let's try some inequalities. So let's solve the inequality negative 4 times x plus 1 is less than or equal to 2x plus 8. Remember, the steps for solving inequalities are all the same as the steps for solving equations, except we flip the inequality sign when we're multiplying or dividing by a negative number. So I'm going to start off here by distributing. So I have negative 4 times x plus negative 4 times 1 is less than or equal to 2x plus 8. Negative 4 times x will be negative 4x plus negative 4 times 1 will be negative 4, and that's less than or equal to 2x plus 8. So I have a double sign right here, so I'm going to go ahead and combine that plus negative into a subtraction. So I have 4x minus 4 is less than or equal to 2x plus 8. Now I have variables on both sides, so I'm going to move them all over to one side. This 2x is positive, so I'm going to do the opposite and subtract 2x from both sides. So on the left side, that leaves me with negative 4x minus 2x, which is negative 6x. Bring down the minus 4, and that's less than or equal to 2x and minus 2x will cancel, and then we have 8. Now we're going to add 4 to both sides, which leaves us with negative 6x, because minus 4 and plus 4 will cancel, is less than or equal to 12. Now I'm going to divide both sides by negative 6 to get my variable by itself. So negative 6 and negative 6 will cancel, and then I have x. So I divided both sides by a negative sign, so I'm going to have to flip the inequality. So I'm going to flip the inequality so it becomes a greater than or equal to, and then I have 12 divided by negative 6, which is negative 2. So when I go to graph this on my number line, I'm going to go to -2 and put a filled in circle there. Okay, so a filled in circle at -2 and then shade everything to the right of -2. And that is my solution set. So now let's try solving this inequality. 6x minus 8 is less than 7x plus 2. So I once again have a variable on both sides, so I'm going to need to subtract 7x from both sides. So when we have this, we have 6x minus 7x, which is negative x, or you can write negative 1x. Then we have minus 8 is less than 7x, and minus 7x will cancel, and we have 2. Now we need to add 8 to both sides, which gives us negative x. Minus 8 and plus 8 will cancel, and that's less than 2 plus 8, which is 10. So remember, when we have negative x, that basically means there's a negative 1 right there, right? So that's negative 1x is less than 10. So to really get that x by itself, I'm going to have to divide both sides by negative 1. And then on the left, that's going to leave me with x. Since I divided by a negative number, I once again have to flip my sign, and that's going to be negative 10. Since it's a greater than, I'm going to put an open circle at negative 10, and then I'm going to shade everything to the right. So that is my solution. So now let's solve some literal equations. Remember, in literal equations, you're trying to do opposite operations until you isolate the variable that it's asking you to do. So in this case, I'm trying to get y by itself. Well, y is not by itself because it has that negative 3 in front, and then also that 6x is there. So we're going to work on moving these terms away. So I'm going to start off with a 6x. Remember, that's a positive 6x. So the opposite would be to subtract 6x from both sides. So when I do that, on the left, plus 6x and minus 6x will cancel. We have negative 3y equals negative 6x plus 15. So now to isolate this variable, we're going to divide every single term in the equation by negative 3. So when I do that, every single term gets divided by negative 3. On the left, this will cancel, leaving me with just y. Negative 6 divided by negative 3 will be positive 2. And then I have x plus 15 divided by negative 3, which is negative 5. So now I have this plus negative. So I need to combine that into a subtraction sign. So I have 2x minus 5, and that is now solved for y. So remember, if you have any questions as you're working through this review or studying for your test, please let me know. You can email me or attend one-to-one sessions or an open office hour time. But other than that, great work so far, and good luck studying for your test.